Hey there, friends. Welcome to Book Talk Tuesday, a chapter book read aloud with Miss D. Today, we'll be reading Be Fearless, Dream Like a Kid, written by Mikaila Ulmer.
Well, hello, junior entrepreneurs. It's Miss D, and welcome back to another Book Talk Tuesday. I am so excited about today's book titled Be Fearless, Dream Like a Kid, written by Mikaila Ulmer. As you just saw from the book trailer, this book is about 4-year-old Mikaila, who was stung by a bee twice in 1 week. But the great thing is that her parents encourage her to overcome her fear of bees by going to the local library and doing research about them. And after her research, Mikaila knew exactly what her mission in life was to be. She wanted to help endangered honeybees, and she did so by opening up her first lemonade stand in her front yard. And later, at the age of 9 years old, she had the opportunity to go on the show Shark Tank. And that was the beginning of her business called Me and the Bees. So without further ado, I'd like to read to you a small excerpt from chapter 1. Be Fearless, Dream Like a Kid, written by Mikaila Ulmer. Chapter 1, Bee Stings. A lot of people ask me how I started my business. Did you just decide to set up a lemonade stand? The answer is yes. I did just decide to set up a lemonade stand, but a lot of steps came before that. It all started in a faraway land called Austin, Texas. At just 4 years old, while I was touring my soon-to-be kindergarten at Trinity Episcopal School, one of my teachers was showing me various classrooms at the elementary and middle school. And I remember thinking everything felt so big and new and shiny compared to my preschool, which was a small dated building with only a couple classrooms. One of the benches outside the library said a colorful flyer advertising a business fair. "Hey, what's that say?" I said to my mom. I was always asking my parents questions. She looked at the flyer and casually said, "That's something called Acton Children's Business Fair." "That sounds like fun. I like fairs," I said with a smile. "Would you want to sign up for that?" my mom asked with a little more interest. The only requirement was that I had to be at least 4 years old. I was 4.5 years old, so I qualified. I said, "Yes, Mommy, I want to do that." Then I paused and thought about it. What's a business fair? I knew what a fair was, but I didn't really know what they meant by business. Will there be rides and games? No, probably not, she laughed. It's a different kind of fair. She explained in basic terms what a business was and how the fair might be organized. So I would sell something at the fair? I kind of understood. "Yes," she said. "Okay, let's sign up." When we got home from the school tour that day, my mom and I registered online for the fair, and she wrote the date of the fair on the family calendar in big red ink. The one rule about the family calendar is that when it goes up, we can't forget about it. Although we did have enough time to forget about it, since it was 5 months away in September, it still felt like not enough time to figure out what I was going to sell. I decided that over the summer I would test out some business ideas. One day, I thought I would create something fun and pretty for people to buy. So I searched for flowers in our garden and then took Play-Doh, rolled them into balls with the flowers, and tried to sell them. After grabbing my little craft table and chair from my room, I sat and waited on my front lawn for customers. As you can imagine, it didn't go very well. But I did learn that in order to sell your product, it needs to be a product that people want to buy. So I thought about selling my drawings or even making bracelets. Everyone likes to buy bracelets. Maybe people would buy my product. I was getting somewhere. Everywhere I went, I came up with ideas of new things to sell. Slime with glitter, painted rocks, lip balm that maybe my parents would not let me wear because I wasn't allowed to wear lip gloss or lipstick yet. I would continue to test out new ideas and figure out exactly what I was going to sell. This is where the bees came in. I don't remember much about being stung by my first bee, but I was only 4.5 years old. But I do remember one part clearly. I got stung in the neck. The neck! I was at a neighbor's party up the hill from our house when it happened. Friends were there and they were playing music. I was spinning around, dancing with my arms stretched out when something hit my face. So I went to swat at it. And I clearly remember hitting something with my hand. I must have made the bee angry because before I knew it, something sharp hit my neck. My family was there, and there was lots of crying. After a while, my neck stopped burning, and it started to sting. I guess that's why they call it a bee sting. All around our neighborhood were large aloe plants. My dad tore off a piece of aloe and told me to hold it to my neck. I did as he instructed and sulked for the rest of the party. Then, exactly 1 week later, when we were at a family cookout, I got my second bee sting. This time in my ear. 2 different bees, 2 different places. I actually thought that I would now get stung every time I went outside, or at least every 7 days. After the second bee sting, I didn't even want to go outside, not even to help my dad in our garden or play with my little brother Jacob. I tried to avoid any interaction with a bee and didn't want to go near anything with wings. This was a problem for my family. We were very outdoorsy, and not leaving the house wasn't an option. My parents sat me down one evening and said, "Mikaila, you can choose to be afraid of the bees, but that would mean not going outside and enjoying all the things you love to do. Or, instead of being afraid of the bees, you could learn about them." So we went to the library and my bee research began. Twin Oaks Branch Library was just a few blocks away from my home, and I loved visiting it because it was always quiet and cool. In Austin, where our winters could be just as hot as our summers, you were always looking for places to escape the heat. When I was a little girl, my favorite day of the week was Monday. Every Monday, my mom would take me to the library. I don't remember our walks to and from the library, but my mom tells me I would stop every few steps to inspect something new. "Look, what's that?" A few more steps. "And what's that?" I was always asking questions. It took us a very long time to go a short distance. When we got to the library, I had just as many questions about things. The library was a place where I could get a lot of answers to a lot of questions. I thought that was awesome. The library knows everything, I would say. I learned how to read when I was very young. My parents were amazed at how quickly I picked up words. I read to know the answers to my questions. I always wanted to check out as many books as I could, but the librarian reminded me there was a limit. And my mom would remind me there were only so many books we could carry home. I had to decide which ones to choose, and it was always difficult. In my mind, there were so many topics to explore, from outer space to the deepest oceans. These books took me to unimaginable places. By Tuesday, I was ready for more books. But the day I went to the library after I had been stung by 2 bees, I knew exactly what I was looking for. Bee books. At 4.5, I couldn't read most of the complicated subjects, but there were a few picture books in the kids section, so I started with those. I tried to learn anything and everything about bees. I also checked out a video about bee pollination. I remember the video played that Wild Flight of the Bumblebee music by Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov. My mom explained the music was from an opera and was well known. I buzzed around the living room like a bee in an opera. I thought it was fascinating that the video was told from the perspective of the bee, who said things like, "I'm super fuzzy, and pollen sticks to the hair on my legs when I visit flowers." The bees then move the pollen to a special area on their back legs called pollen baskets. That was interesting. I didn't know that. I stopped buzzing around the room and really paid attention. Without me, you wouldn't be able to eat most fruits, nuts, cheeses, or any dairy because cows eat alfalfa, and alfalfa is pollinated by bees. Is this true? I asked my parents with wide eyes. Yes, it's true, they said. Isn't ice cream dairy? Yes. So no ice cream? No ice cream. Even though I wasn't able to fully grasp the effects of bees in our environment, I still realized many things I love to eat, not just honey, came from bees. Yes, they stung, and yes, they were a little scary for that reason, but they were an important part of our world. I also learned that bees were dying at an alarming rate, so I decided I was going to save them. But how? Without knowing it, I was doing the first 3 most important steps in starting a business. First, I was identifying a problem. Second, I was researching the problem. And finally, I was starting to do something I felt passionate about. The first 3 steps are critical. You always want to clearly identify and research your problem before you get started. And you always want to be involved in a business or product you're passionate about. I can't stress this enough. If you are not passionate about your idea, it will be hard to stay engaged in the work it takes to grow a business. And believe me, there's a lot of work ahead of you when you start a business. I had to continue to test out ideas for the business fair, but nothing really excited me. Then 2 months after my first bee sting and 1 month after touring the school, my family and I were driving around Austin running errands, and we saw lemonade stands on street after street. At first we thought all the kids serving lemonade must be a coincidence. It was a really hot day after all. But we soon learned there was something called Austin Lemonade Day, where kids set up lemonade stands to help earn money for different causes. Turns out, Lemonade Day is an event that happens every May. It was launched in 2007 in Houston, Texas, to teach kids how to start and run their own businesses. Since then, it was expanded to include more than 1 million child participants in the United States and Canada. Of course, I insisted on stopping at every stand we passed. I saw how much fun all the kids were having, learning how to handle and count money, serve customers, and support a cause they loved. One child we met was raising money for a food pantry, another for sea turtles, another for a family trip. There were so many fun lemonade stands, and so many kids, and so many good causes. I wanted to go home immediately and set up my own lemonade stand and start helping the bees. But it was getting late, and I had already missed Lemonade Day. Our house is near a church, so I could certainly set up and sell lemonade the next day, which was a Sunday, and donate to the bees. The next morning, I woke up early to the sound of church bells and got to work in the kitchen. I can make my own lemonade day, I thought. We had some lemons and plenty of sugar, but I decided to replace the sugar with honey, since my mission was to save the bees. I would set up a lemonade stand in front of my house using my craft table and chair and sell to the churchgoers as they left. I took a picture, drizzled in tons of honey, squeezed a couple lemons, then added water. I had made my first official batch of lemonade, and it was awful. When I tasted it, my face bunched up from the sourness. When my mother tasted it, she agreed. We poured it down the drain and started over. It was a little better the next time, but I could tell she was upset that the kitchen was a mess and that I'd wasted a lot of ingredients. There was pictures everywhere, sticky sugar on the countertops, honey on the floor, and lots of cups on the table. I got to work designing a poster. "How much should I sell my lemonade for?" I asked my dad. "What seems like a fair price?" he responded. I didn't know anything about the cost of things, but remembered most kids on Lemonade Day were selling their lemonade for $1, so I decided to sell mine for the same price. "That seems reasonable," he said. The poster said, "Drink lemonade and save the bees." Then below it read, $1, smiles free. I brought out the lemonade and I waited for people to show up. It didn't take long before an older couple stood in front of my table. They talked about the sun being hot and they were very thirsty. Suddenly, I got really nervous and shy, so I ran and hid behind my lemonade picture. I had tried to sell a few painted rocks to my neighbors, but they were people I knew. Selling lemonade to strangers was different and suddenly scary because I didn't know what to say or what they said back to me. My parents told me I needed to be polite and introduce myself, then introduce my product. Then they said to talk about the bees. I did the best I could. When the couple left, my parents told me to be confident in myself. It took a few more tries to shake off the jitters. After a few more customers, I was calling to the people on the street, "Buy my lemonade and save the bees." Then I talk about my lemonade and tell people how important the bees are to our planet. I even made some money, $15 to be exact, which felt like a whole lot to a 4.5-year-old. We still have the first dollar I made at the lemonade stand mounted in a frame in our house. That night, my parents asked if I had a bee organization in mind that I planned to donate the money to. I said, "Yes, I know exactly which one, but first I want to buy a doll." I had been eyeing this beautiful doll my cousin got for Christmas, and I wanted it more than anything. And then I give the rest to a bee foundation. And that was a small excerpt from the book Be Fearless, Dream Like a Kid, written by Mikaila Ulmer. I chose to recommend this book to you today because it's part memoir, part business guide. And that just simply means that it tells the story of how Mikaila grew her lemonade stand into an actual business. And it's a great book to learn about entrepreneurship or mission-based business specifically for children. It's important to know that children of all ages can become entrepreneurs, launch their own business, and support a cause near and dear to their hearts while doing so. I like to leave you with a piece of advice from Mikaila herself. She says to dream like a kid. Why? Because kids are so fearless. A kid will do whatever it needs to be done to achieve their dreams. And in the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it's done.
Thanks for watching.